This is an audio-visual presentation on quadratic equations. A quadratic equation is an equation of the form ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0, where a is not equal to 0. Take note that a is the coefficient of the square term, b is the coefficient of x, and c is the constant of the quadratic equation. So for ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0 to be a quadratic equation, it means that the coefficient of the square term must not be equal to 0. I repeat, for ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0 to be a quadratic equation, it means that the coefficient of the square term, that is a, must not be equal to 0. Now when b equals 0, that is when the coefficient of x equals 0, 0 times x will give us 0. That means the equation becomes ax squared plus c equals 0. That is ax squared plus c equals 0. Likewise, if c equals 0, that is when the constant is equal to 0, then the equation now becomes ax squared plus bx equals 0. So ax squared plus bx equals 0. Now given the quadratic equation, 3x squared plus 5x plus 1 is equal to 0. The general form of the quadratic equation is ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0. A is the coefficient of the square term, b is the coefficient of x, and c is the constant. Now when we consider the quadratic equation given, that is 3x squared plus 5x plus 1 is equal to 0. Coefficient of the square term is 3. That means that a is equal to 3. Coefficient of the x term is 5. That means that b is equal to 5. And the constant is plus 1. That means that c is equal to 1. Now let's look at how we can solve quadratic equations. Now if you have equations of the form ax squared minus c equals 0, this is how we solve the equation of the form ax squared minus c equals 0. Minus c on the left hand side, that's the constant, becomes plus c on the right hand side. And solving for the equation means we are solving for the variable. Now a is a constant, that's the coefficient of the square term, which will be given. Now c is also a constant. Because we are solving for x, we divide the left hand side by a. And when we divide the left hand side, that is ax squared by a, we are left with x squared. This is equal to, when we divide the right hand side by a, we have c over a. This means that x squared is equal to c over a. Now because we are solving for x, we have to take the square root of both sides. When we take the square root of the left hand side, we are left with x. And when we take the square root of the right hand side, we have plus or minus the square root of c over a. That is, when you take the square root of anything, it is plus or minus the answer. So x equals plus or minus the square root of c over a. Now let's look at this example. Solve the equation 2x squared minus 18 equals 0. So minus 18 on the left hand side becomes 18 on the right hand side. So we have 2x squared is equal to 18. Now because we are solving for x, we divide the left hand side by 2. And we divide the right hand side also by 2. When we divide 2x squared by 2, we are left with x squared. And this is equal to, when we divide 18 by 2, we have 9. So x squared is equal to 9. X squared is equal to 9. Now, because we are solving for x, we have to take the square root of both sides. So when we take the square root of x squared, we are left with x. And when we take the square root of 9, we have plus or minus the answer. And the answer is 3, because the square root of 9 equals 3. So x is equal to plus or minus 3. Now we consider equations of the form ax squared plus bx plus 0 equals 0. That is when the constant is equal to 0. The quadratic equation becomes ax squared plus bx equals 0. There is no constant, so there is no plus c. So let's consider equations of the form ax squared plus bx equals 0. Now, given ax squared plus bx equals 0, we can see that x is common to the term ax squared and it's also common to the term bx. Now we factor the common term out, that is x. So in bracket we have ax plus b. This is equal to 0. Now when we expand, ax times x will give us ax squared back, and b times x will also give us bx back. That means we have not changed the equation. It's a matter of factorizing x out. So we have x being factored out into bracket. We have ax plus b equals 0. Now the term we have outside the bracket is x. So x is equal to 0, or the bracket, that is ax plus b, is also equal to 0. Now if ax plus b is equal to 0 and you are searching for x, the constant plus b on the left hand side becomes minus b on the right hand side. And so if ax equals minus b, how do you solve for x? We divide the left hand side by a. And when we divide ax by a, you are left with x. When we divide minus b by a, you have minus b over a. That means that the value of x, the values of x are, we have x equals minus b over a and x equals 0. Now let's look at this example. Solve the equation 2x squared is equal to 14x. Now 14x on the right hand side becomes minus 14x on the left hand side, and this is equal to 0. So we factor 2x out. So in bracket we have x minus 7. Why? Because when you multiply 2x by x, you are still getting back the 2x squared. And when you multiply 2x by minus 7, you are getting the minus 14x. So we have not changed the equation. It's still the same thing. We are only factorizing 2x out. Now when 2x is factored out, in bracket we have x minus 7 is equal to 0. So the term outside the bracket is 2x. So we equate 2x to 0. That is 2x is equal to 0. Solving for x, we divide the left hand side by 2 and we are left with x. When we divide 0 by 2, the answer is 0. So we have x equals 0. That's the first value of x. The first value of x is equal to 0. Or we also equate the bracket to 0. And the bracket is x minus 7 is equal to 0. So if x minus 7 is equal to 0, then it implies that x is equal to 7. Why? Because minus 7 on the left hand side of the equation becomes plus 7 on the right hand side. That is why x equals 7. Therefore the values of x are x equals 7 and x equals 0. Now solving quadratic equations. Let's consider equations of the form ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0, where a is the coefficient of the square term, b is the coefficient of x, and c is the constant. Now example, solve the quadratic equation x squared minus 5x plus 6 is equal to 0. Solve the quadratic equation x squared minus 5x plus 6 is equal to 0. Now solution. Given the quadratic equation x squared minus 5x plus 6 is equal to 0. Coefficient of the square term is 1. That is why it cannot be seen, because 1x squared is the same as x squared. So the coefficient, that is a, is equal to 1. Coefficient of the x term is minus 5. Then the constant is equal to 6. Now to solve this quadratic equation, we multiply coefficient of the square term, that is 1, by the constant. So we have 1 times 6. And when we multiply 1 by 6, the result is 6. Now what we are going to do is that we are going to search for two numbers. When we multiply the numbers, we have to get the 6. But when we add, we have to get the coefficient of the x, that is minus 5. Minus 5x. Now let's start with 3 and 2. When we multiply 3 by 2, the answer is 6, which is equal to the 6 we had. But when we add 2x to 3x, 2x plus 3x is not equal to minus 5x. Take note that the term we have here is minus 5x, but when we add 2x to 3x, is not equal to minus 5x. That means that we cannot use the numbers 3 and 2. So now let's take two different numbers, minus 3 minus 2. We first multiply. Minus 3 times minus 2 is equal to 6, which is equal to the 6 we had. Now let's add and see. Minus 3x plus minus 2x is equal to minus 3x minus 2x, and the answer is minus 5x. So because when we multiply, we are getting the 6. And when we add, we are also getting the minus 5x. It means that we are going to use minus 3 minus 2. And therefore, x squared minus 5x plus 6 equals 0 can be expressed as x squared. In place of minus 5x, we write minus 3x minus 2x, because minus 3x minus 2x is equal to minus 5x. So plus our constant c is equal to 0. Now, considering the first two terms, we factor x out, and in bracket we have x minus 3. Now here we also factor minus 2 out, and in bracket we have x minus 3. This is equal to 0. Take note that the expression you have in the first bracket is the same as the expression we have in the second bracket. Now we look at the terms outside the bracket. We have x as a coefficient of the bracket. So we have x here, we have minus 2 here. So we have x minus 2, we maintain it in one bracket. Then we also maintain one of the brackets since they are the same. So we have x minus 2 in one bracket, then x minus 3 also in one bracket, all is equal to 0. Now, this x minus 2 into bracket, x minus 3 into bracket equals 0 means that x minus 2 is equal to 0. When x minus 2 is equal to 0, solving for x, minus 2 on the left hand side becomes plus 2 on the right hand side. That means that the value of x is equal to 2. Also, when we equate x minus 3 is equal to 0, we have x minus 3 is equal to 0. And solving for x, minus 3 on the left hand side becomes plus 3 on the right hand side. And this implies that x is equal to 3. Hence the values of x, for which the quadratic equation x squared minus 5x plus 6 equals 0 are x equals 2 and x equals 3. Now example, solve the quadratic equation 6x squared minus 7x minus 3 is equal to 0. Coefficient of the square term is 6. Coefficient of x is minus 7 and the constant is minus 3. Now let's see how best we can solve this problem. Now let's consider this example. Solve the quadratic equation 6x squared minus 7x minus 3 is equal to 0. Solution. Given 6x squared minus 7x minus 3 is equal to 0. Coefficient of the square term is 6. Coefficient of x is minus 7 and the constant is minus 3. So the first thing we do is to multiply the coefficient of the square term by the constant. So 6 times minus 3 and 6 times minus 3 is equal to minus 18. Now we search for two numbers. When we multiply, we get minus 18. And when we add, we get coefficient of the x, that is minus 7. Now let's start with 6 and minus 3. When we multiply 6 by minus 3, the answer is minus 18, which is equal to the minus 18 we had. But let's add and see. 6x plus minus 3x. This is not equal to minus 7x. Why is it not equal? Because 6x plus minus 3x is equal to 3x. And 3x is not equal to minus 7x. That means that we cannot use 6 and minus 3. Now, let's take 2 and minus 9. The first thing we do is to multiply. So 2 times minus 9 and 2 times minus 9 is equal to minus 18. Now, we are getting the same minus 18. But let's add and see. 2x plus minus 9x is equal to 2x minus 9x. Because coefficient of the bracket is 1. So plus 1 times minus 9x will give us minus 9x. Now 2x minus 9x is equal to minus 7x, which is equal to minus 7x in the quadratic equation. And therefore, we use the numbers 2 and minus 9. So 6x squared minus 7x minus 3 equals 0 can be expressed as 6x squared plus 2x minus 9x minus 3 is equal to 0. This is because when we multiply the 2 by the minus 9, we have minus 18. And 2x minus 9x is minus 7x. Now, considering the first two terms, we factor 2x out. So when 2x is factored out, in brackets we have 3x plus 1. Now, considering the last two terms, we factor minus 3 out. And when we factor minus 3 out, in brackets we have 3x plus 1 equals 0. Now let's consider the terms outside the bracket. We have 2x minus 3, so we maintain it in one bracket. Then since the brackets are the same, we also maintain 1. So we have 3x plus 1 is equal to 0. So this means that 2x minus 3 is equal to 0, and also 3x plus 1 is equal to 0. Now if 2x minus 3 is equal to 0, how do we solve for x? Minus 3 on the left hand side becomes plus 3 on the right hand side, and we need to divide both sides by 2 in order to make x the subject. When we divide the left hand side 2x by 2, we are left with x. And when we divide the right hand side 3 by 2, we have 3 over 2. That means that the value of x is equal to 3 over 2. Now 3x plus 1 is also equal to 0. Plus 1 on the left hand side becomes minus 1 on the right hand side. And because we are solving for x, we have to divide the left hand side by 3. That is the constant attached to the variable x. And whatever we do to the left hand side, we do the same thing to the right hand side. And we also divide the right hand side by 3. Now when we divide 3x by 3, we are left with x. And when we divide minus 1 by 3, we have minus 1 over 3. This means that the values of x are x equals 3 over 2 and x equals minus 1 over 3. So the values of x for which 6x squared minus 7x minus 3 is equal to 0 are x equals 3 over 2 and x equals minus 1 over 3. This is the end of our presentation on quadratic equations.